Emmanuel Moseley has been one of the biggest question marks on the Detroit Lions roster over the last couple of seasons. After signing as a free agent in the 2023 offseason, expecting to be a full time starter for the Detroit Lions, Emmanuel Moseley has never really lived up to that hype, playing just a singular game in 2023 and a singular game in 2024. Moseley has very much been underwhelming as a free agent signing and even a free agent signing a brand new deal to stay in Detroit for the 2024 season. However, with injuries arising with Carlton Davis, Khalil Dorsey, and Ennis Rakestraw Jr. all being on IR for the foreseeable future, the Detroit Lions are going to have to start relying on their veteran cornerback, and Emmanuel Moseley is going to have to be thrown into the fire sooner rather than later. And today, that is exactly what we will be taking a look at. We will be taking a look at Emmanuel Moseley, where he's been on the roster, why he seems to have disappeared despite being activated from injury reserves, and why this week you're going to see a massive uptick in production as well as a potential true replacement for Carlton Davis III. Now, starting off with the injury from a year ago, Emmanuel Moseley has suffered a lot over the last 3 seasons. In 2021, Emmanuel Moseley tore his ACL. He was out for the remainder of the season and then signed with the Detroit Lions. He played for one game. He was injured going into camp, was injured going to the regular season, was activated, was brought in, and was ready to play, contribute in week 5 of the 2023 season. And he made it about 5 snaps with 1 target and tore the same ACL again. He sat out the remainder of the season. He, of course, did not contribute, did not participate, and was rehabbing for nearly the entirety of 2023 from the original ACL tear in 22 and the re-tear in 2023. He has suffered a lot. Going into training camp, he was expected to be a starter. He was expected to play that slot cornerback role, be physical, be big, be tough in there, and make a lot of tough contested catches. And then he tore his pectoral again. He was on IR for a majority of the Detroit Lions season, but on November 23rd was taken off of IR, was activated and actually played versus the Indianapolis Colts as a special teamer. And even though he didn't contribute any tackles to the stat sheet, he was a pretty good gunner, did help the Detroit Lions win on special teams. He was a pretty big part of that special teams performance and helped the Detroit Lions win for the first time of his NFL career. However, in the 3 games since, Emmanuel Moseley has been a healthy scratch. He is not dressed. He has been held back, and it's not for injury concerns. It's not because he's on the injury report. And in fact, since that Indianapolis Colts game, Emmanuel Moseley has been a full participant in practice for the last 3 weeks. He hasn't even shown up on the practice report in 2 weeks because he's not hurt. He's not injured. He is fully and completely healthy. But the Detroit Lions are taking it slow, whether it be a little bit of PTSD, whether it be a little bit of remorse from last year, or just hesitancy to put a player in before they're ready. The Detroit Lions have decided over the last month or so to keep number 4 out of the football game. They haven't allowed him to play special teams. They haven't allowed him to play cornerback, and they haven't even allowed him to dress in the last 3 footballing contests. However, that has to change, with the Detroit Lions placing Carlton Davis and Khalil Dorsey on season-ending injury reserves, as well as Ennis Rakestraw's return with likely a couple of weeks left to go. The Detroit Lions are down to 4. They are down to Terrion Arnold, Kendall Vildor, Amik Robertson, and Emmanuel Moseley. And with Arnold and Vildor both being boundary guys, with Amik Robertson being in the slot, Emmanuel Moseley is the only depth player that they have left. There is no choice. Emmanuel Moseley has to play this weekend, and he's going to have to play a pretty significant role. Now the question becomes, can Emmanuel Moseley play that role? How good of a cornerback is he going to be coming off not only a pectoral tear, but back-to-back ACL injuries? And is he going to be ready for NFL contact, NFL speed, and NFL play? Well, taking a look at his last 16 games with the 49ers, Emmanuel Moseley was fantastic. He played 16 games across his last 2 seasons where he was targeted 82 times, had 49 receptions allowed, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, allowed 478 yards through the air, but totaled 64 tackles, 16 passes defended, 1 pick six, and a fumble recovery. He was fantastic. He was the big, physical press man cornerback, going up against DK Metcalf twice a year, going up against some really physical and very dominant wide receivers. And Moseley held his own in every single one of those matchups. Going up against Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk every day certainly helped. And Emmanuel Moseley helped lead the San Francisco defense to not only being one of the best in the NFL, but to a Super Bowl with a chance to win a championship. Obviously, Emmanuel Moseley hasn't played since that original ACL tear back in 2022. Emmanuel Moseley has played just 5 defensive snaps of football, but the week 16 secondary and the week 16 health is going to make him play a little bit. The secondary going into week 16 versus the Chicago Bears is going to be Terrion Arnold as cornerback 1, Kendall Vildor and Emmanuel Moseley as potential cornerback 2s. Amik Robertson is likely the slot cornerback, with Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, and Ifeatu Melifonwu potentially returning as well to take on that role. Now, the reason I have Melifonwu on here, despite not actually being activated yet, is he is practicing with the team. He's been practicing with a couple of days now since Monday. And I think if Ifeatu Melifonwu wasn't ready to play, the Detroit Lions would have signed a player. They would have signed a free agent cornerback. They would have found somebody to take on the role and add a little bit of depth, because without Melifonwu, the secondary is literally 7 people, most of which are supposed to be backups. With Ifeatu Melifonwu, you can now place him next to Kirby Joseph. You can have Brian Branch take a slot cornerback position, which means you can have Amik Robertson go out to boundary cornerback, and that gives you quite a bit more significant depth. That means as a boundary cornerback options, you have Terrion Arnold, Kendall Vildor, Emmanuel Moseley, and Amik Robertson. For slot cornerback depth, you have either Amik Robertson, Brian Branch, or Emmanuel Moseley, who can all play in the slot. And then for the safety rotation, you have Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, Ifeatu Melifonwu, and Brandon Joseph, which is now 4 deep at the safety position. Again, oppose that to if Melifonwu was not there, you can't move Branch out of the safety slot, meaning you only have 1 slot cornerback, meaning you only really have 1 backup as a boundary cornerback, and the depth is much, much scarcer. So that is kind of my headcanon and why I think Moseley might play, or why I think Melifonwu might play. But let's get back to some of the other options. A practice squad member, perhaps. Well, the Lions have 3 secondary members on the practice squad, that being Maurice Norris, the preseason standout, Lauren Strickland, a player that initially did make the 53-man roster before being waived just a few weeks ago, and the most recent signing of Stanley Thomas Oliver, who joins the Detroit Lions just a few days ago to the practice squad and has been with the team for about 72 hours. That is it. That is the depth that the Detroit Lions have. If they want to call up one of these players, they absolutely can. Morris is more of a safety / slot cornerback. Lauren Strickland is more of a strong safety, run defender, even potential weak side linebacker type. And Stanley Thomas Oliver has yet to play in a game this season. And again, it was just signed to the practice squad a few days ago. So it's pretty evident that Emmanuel Moseley is going to need to play. And I think he's going to be able to. In training camp, Emmanuel Moseley was projected to be the starting slot cornerback. He was big, he was physical, he was supposed to make it really difficult to get off the line of scrimmage, even from the slot. And unfortunately, he tore his pectoral. Unfortunately, he was placed on injury reserves for a majority of the season, but that was 6 months ago. That is well long enough time to get back to playing shape, get back to playing form. He's been on the active roster for 3 weeks. He is available for this team. The Lions just haven't given him the opportunity. Again, whether it be hesitancy because of what happened last time, whether it be Emmanuel Moseley just not winning the job yet, there is a reason the Lions haven't played Emmanuel Moseley. There is a reason he hasn't taken a defensive snap in 4 weeks, but he's going to have to. Circumstances call for it. Emmanuel Moseley's number will be called, and he has to step up to the plate for the Detroit Lions to be successful. With that being said, I think some of the roles on defense, he can play slot cornerback like he was projected to during training camp. He can, of course, play boundary cornerback like he did in San Francisco, like he did the last time he suited up for the Detroit Lions. He adds a lot of versatility to this defense. Again, if you want to put Moseley outside, you can. If you want to put him inside, you can, which means you can rotate out Vilder, which means you can move around Robertson, which means you can do a lot of different things schematically on the defense. And overall, Emmanuel Moseley is a great scheme fit. He is the big physical slot cornerback. He was supposed to be the big physical boundary cornerback to be alongside Cam Sutton, so Sutton didn't have to be that. The injuries, of course, led to Cam Sutton having to play more of a press man technique, playing more out of his comfort zone, which led to Sutton not being as good. But Emmanuel Moseley is a perfect scheme fit for this defense. He is the perfect replacement for Carlton Davis if he can stay healthy. And I think that if, again, he can stay healthy, the Lions have a really good replacement for Carlton Davis, a really good option moving forward, and potentially a player that can help them win football games now. So with that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below. What do you think about Emmanuel Moseley's return? Do you think he's going to be the same cornerback he was in San Francisco? Or do you think there's a bigger reason as to why he's been kept out of the Detroit Lions starting secondary? I'm curious to your guys' opinions in the comments down below. But with that being said, that's all I got for you right now. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go.